cannot exist.
And welcome to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
How are you, Angela?
I'm just fine, Tuesday Miles. How about you?
I'm fine. It's great to be here today. We have moved into our primetime slot, and I'm excited that we have an excellent guest joining us today, and everything just seems to be perfect with it.
Yes, psychic, world-renowned psychic Jeffrey Wands is here to help celebrate our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, absolutely, and we're gonna go more than world. We're gonna go internationally. I mean, just all over the place, and we are really excited for it. So before we bring him on, Angela, real quick, can you let our listeners know where they can listen to us also on UpSnap?
Yes. Well, we now have 2 ways to access the show. With UpSnap, you simply text PARA to the numbers 27627 on your mobile phone, and you can listen to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. Again, that's PARA, P-A-R-A, to the numbers 27627, or if you want to listen to the show by your vehicle, simply call 201-765-9737.
Great, thank you, Angela. And I just have a real quick announcement. The International Society for the Protection of Mustangs and Bureaus are needing our help. There's over 300 horses that they have actually taken in and adopted from a couple of the tribes out in I guess it would be the western area.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they need our help desperately because it's costing them over $20,000 to help these horses. And so if you have an extra buck or two, or if you can donate anything, would be appreciated. And I'll put the information on the website. And you can go to their website at www.isp, P as in Paul, mbzimberry.org, or you can call Karen Sussman at area code 605-964-6866, and they desperately need this help for these 300 horses, and we don't want them to starve to death.
Absolutely, and visit the portaltalkradio.com website, and we'll have that information up there for you.
Yes, absolutely. There's more to this, and so actually I'm willing to donate something to you by you donating your help to them. So on that note on it, so Angela, would you like to welcome in our guest?
Well, again, internationally known psychic Jeffrey Wands. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure doing it. I was looking forward to it today. So.
Well, thank you. Nice to see you, Jeffrey. Nice to speak with you, actually. And here we have Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you know what? You have written these books. Jeffrey has his own radio show. I would like to say that, too. And that is on, let me make sure there I have this correct on it, because that was on
97.5 Walk.
Yes, it is.
A-L-K.
Yes, it is. 97.5 FM. And that's every Friday morning.
Well, actually, no. It's every Sunday night, and then I'm on the morning show of the station the first Friday of the month.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So it's every Sunday evening.
Yes, every Sunday from 10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Eastern Standard.
And that's Eastern Standard Time on it. And I happened to be switching around the channels on the television yesterday, and lo and behold, I switch on Maury Povich show, and there you are.
Oh, yeah, that was the best of Jeffrey Wands. That was actually all our episodes that they put together for one show, and it was me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's the one with the Eastern Penitentiary thing in Philly where we went on kind of a ghost hunt.
Yes. Yes, and they had a couple other guests that were on there with you, your friend Jeff Belanger, and
yes.
They had Ryan Buell that was on there for a quick couple seconds. And
yeah, it was good. I was very impressed with him. He's an extremely interesting young man.
We've had him on the show. He is. He has taken a lot of flack from people, I guess, from his show, and I have to say that he's actually staying true to himself, what he wants to do with the show, and it's being very successful on it. So, and then you have 2 books now. The first one you wrote was The Psychic in You, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the second book was Another Door Opens.
Yeah, that's my most recent book, and I'm actually working on my 3rd book.
Your 3rd book?
Yes.
And what's that 3rd book going to be about,
I haven't
Jeffrey?
even gotten to a name. I never get a name out until about a week before I hand the manuscript in. So the book will be done in September, and I'm sure at that point I'll have a name for it.
Well, I'm excited to read that one. I've read the other ones, and I actually love them both on it. And I have to say that, you know, a lot of interesting things that you wrote about, and I'm going to start with Another Door Opens because that was the last one that I had read, and we'll go on to the other one too. But, you know, there's a couple things I want to ask you about that, in your opinion on what you meant on this. And it says here, and you say in the book, the door to the spirit world opens both ways. What do you mean by that?
In my experiences with doing the work and, you know, doing it for a lot of years, you know, people always look at it, and I always try to tell people you don't need a medium to make a connection. And I think in a lot of cases with souls just have to learn how to kind of make that ability to be able to come through and connect with us. And that's why I use that term, because I find it to be that your loved ones or whoever you've lost do very much find a way to get through. It's just a matter of them learning how to come through. And I always tell people you don't need someone like myself to necessarily make connections.
Well, Jeffrey, how long would you say that it takes an individual to develop their abilities?
You know what? I've had experiences with people where it's been 3 weeks. I don't think there's a set time. I think it's on the individual more so, because it's like people, I laugh, you know, people say to me all the time, they're like, you know, this is the first time in my life I feel spiritual. And I always tell people you were born spiritual. You know, you just awaken to it at different points. But you know, I find it to be in that way that it's much easier for some people just to make that connection. It's taking that quiet time and learning how to listen to that voice.
Do you think that fear from this might cause a blockage in some people that they...
Oh, absolutely. Fear is a major issue because, you know, we live in a society where we have to have control, and people don't always want to understand what they can't see. And I laugh because, you know, the spirit world's so omnipresent all the time. It's always around us. We just don't always pay attention to it.
Oh, exactly on this. But then you say the people who are just starting out or maybe recognizing their psychic gifts, I think it took me a while to actually sit down and feel comfortable without the fear of something behind me that is going to come through, and I'm hearing them talk.
Well, I mean, look at how Hollywood glorifies it. You know, people, I laugh, you know, when I first started doing this, people compared it to The Exorcist. So they're like all the time, oh my God, you know, how do you know it's not a possession? How do you know somebody's not going to come after you? And I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's just we live sometimes, not that there's not good and bad in the world, but people are just so afraid of things they don't understand.
Oh, absolutely on that. Absolutely on it. And so let's talk about the why me syndrome, because you do talk about that quite a bit in Another Door Opens.
Well, you know, I think more so I try to tell people I was fortunate. It was something that I had to learn to kind of deal with. More so with people, I think that, you know, I'm a lot more sensitive than the average person. It's always something I fought my whole life. It's only, I would say, in the last 4 or 5 years I'm really at peace with what I'm doing. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. I mean, if anyone that's ever done any of this work, they understand that you always have to prove yourself every day. And that's probably the worst part of what I do, because we're not allowed to have off days. We're not allowed to have days. You know, people have what we call expectations, and that's what makes it so difficult. But I tell people, it's just a matter of understanding, yes, why me? It's something that no matter what I've done in my lifetime to try to get away from this, I always get pulled back into it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. A lot of people have heavy expectations of a psychic. Do you ever feel, Jeffrey, that you've been placed on a spot and that you had to come up with an answer quickly?
Oh, all the time. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by when it's not like that. It's frustrating because, you know, I will give people information and they still don't want to help themselves, and it's just a process of people learning how to help themselves. And that's
well, and what a heavy responsibility it is when the weight of the world is on a psychic like yourself. You know, that's a lot of pressure to put on someone. And so, you know, an individual just expecting, oh my goodness, he is now going to say what I've needed to hear for so long. And sometimes they're a bit disappointed because they have this whole volume in their mind of what you're about to tell them, and it may be totally different.
No, and I agree. And you know what? I'm not like the happy psychic. I tell people what the truth is, and not everybody can handle the truth. And unfortunately, everybody has their own perception of things, and I find it to be, especially when I sit with somebody who's lost somebody, you know, they have this pre-set opinion of what they think their relationship was with the person as compared to really what went on. And I find it to be, you know, when you're doing this work, I always warn people that sometimes, you know, spirit will come through in a way where they're not totally worked through their stuff that they went through here in the physical world, and they do carry that over. And sometimes, you know, the personalities are still very omnipresent. They still very much have set opinions about things, even though they may not be right about those things.
So as in life, as in death, then, if you're going to, you know, continue to be a jerk here, you're going to be a jerk over there.
Oh, I find it to be. I mean, if you're alcoholic here, you're going to carry it over. Not everybody in the spirit world is standing holding hands singing Kumbaya. I think it's very funny when it gets
For sure. Do you think that those who, like you said, an alcoholic, will search for somebody over here that's an alcoholic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they can feel that, I mean, they pick up that vibration of actually trying to be drunk again?
Oh, absolutely. I've done sessions with people where someone's been alcoholic. I can actually taste the gin when I'm talking to the person.
No kidding.
So they're literally living vicariously through those on the earth plane that have the same vice that they shared while they were here.
Oh, yeah, because it's easy for them.
So in order for them to help the spirit actually move on to where they should be going, is that person should be giving up alcohol? I mean,
well, I mean, you would like to see people resolve what they need to resolve here before they go on, because, I mean, as you know, in the world there's good and bad, and there's good and bad in the spirit world. And sometimes you're going to get these different levels of spirits that still stick around, that haven't been able to move on, that are still carrying certain things. And I try to tell people, it's like, you know, if the world was a perfect place, then everybody would be so happy, and the world's not a perfect place, and neither is the spirit world.
Right, you're right there, because that's the lessons that we get to learn from all that stuff, is the imperfection that we bring, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But you know what, I think the lesson, like people say to me, where's hell? And I think, we're living it right now. And it's kind of a lesson, because, people get so caught up on the demonic forces and, is there a heaven and is there a hell? And I think that, every day we go through challenges here, so it's like being in hell.
Why do you think we have such a different opinions on this in the religious sense, or the religious church as far as that goes? I mean, they're taught, or we're taught that the fact is that heaven's above and hell's below, and the fact is if you don't do it by this, then you don't get to reach that spot. But yet, as psychics, we learn something completely, totally different.
Well, I think
it's we're right.
I think it's easy for religion. They want you to believe what they want you to believe. And I draw a very fine line. It's a personal thing. So, you know what? We need religion just like we need psychics. And I think what happens is that you do get these fundamentalists that are very much into a level of the fact that, if we're getting messages or we're getting energy, it's got to be from hell. It can't be anything of a pure nature. And, I laugh with stuff like that. And I find it to be like when I sit with people and if the person's an atheist, it really doesn't make a difference because that soul still finds a way to come through.
So, Jeffrey, have you ever had a spirit talk about God or the spirit or the saints or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, they call them higher energies. So my experiences have been they won't come out and say that there's, what we call the Christ or the higher being. They'll talk it more in the terms of the higher being.
So do you feel that is done for a specific reason? I mean, where they're not knowing, those spirits knowing that we here on this earth plane have a certain set of beliefs. Do you think that they avoid that, or?
Yeah, I think they do that because I don't think they want to disrupt us here.
I agree with that. In the book, again, let me say, Another Door Opens, you say that everything in life happens for a reason. And by saying this, do you mean we have no mistakes, that life is mapped out for us before we're born?
I think we come in with a little bit of predestiny, and then I think it's like kind of coming to the fork in the road. And I think we're thrown into situations because we're supposed to learn from those situations. And I always tell people, like, you're meeting somebody for a reason because they're supposed to play a role or you're supposed to have a connection with that person. And I think that's why it takes place.
Oh, that's a good answer for that one on it. I mean, it's like I always say, is there a way to to prove this? I mean, the fact of it is that...
you know what? I look at it from the point, like, you put in a situation. I mean, probably a good example of something like this is, you get in a life and death situation. It's not an accident that you put there. It's not like the same thing that if you were going to war and, you're in Iraq and you're getting shot at, okay, there's a reason for it because I really believe that everything kind of ties into previous times and previous experiences that we've gone through, and that we attract likes and we attract people that are supposed to be in our life, and that's why, we go through these instances.
And does that mean that you feel that when you do experience that, when people are coming into your life at the right timing, that you're on the right path then?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, too. And you really do know. I mean, and this is a good example for anybody to learn from. If you're not on the right path, really things are not going to go your way. Things are not going to go in the order that which you want them to. But if you're on versus the right path, you run into people who, for instance, helps you, or you're at the grocery store at the right time with the right coupons, or you're anything on it.
I think, when you look at somebody like Oprah, okay, and you look at what Oprah's done, and here's Oprah, the done movies, done this stuff, has gotten this TV show, has made such a big impact on people. This is not by accident. This is by design. I mean, she's been put in this instance, and she's got into an energy where she's attracting like people. And I tell people, I laugh because, you know, once in a while you'll get somebody, well, you said this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And, you know, I've said it to, you know, to people, and we're the ones that block it. You know, when you're doing mediumistic work or you're doing psychic work, you're giving information. So in the human portal, we're basically interpreting something, okay? You can get it wrong based on the fact that you may not be interpreting it right. I've sat with people, and it may make no sense to me, but it makes sense to them because they'll give me something symbolic, or they'll give me something that I think is totally ludicrous or ridiculous, but to that individual that's in front of you, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Or even I've had people, you know, contact me later saying, guess what, something I thought you were totally crazy on or you were totally wrong on. Well, you know, months and months later, it comes into my path. And
without
like, okay.
Well, Jeffrey, have you found any difficulties when spirits are from a different culture than your own? Do you find that the vibration or the message is a bit different?
Because I get asked that all the time. I find it to be when I'm working with people, like especially if it's somebody that's Greek and the person speaks no English, they will give me catchphrases. They will give me something that I would say to you that would make sense to me so that I could relate to it. So I've had it like where I've sat with somebody who's Spanish, I will actually get Spanish words. I will get certain things. They will bring it through in that way so I understand it.
Very interesting.
Well,
very
that would be kind of hard having somebody, if you don't understand Spanish, the fact is that, you know, having all of a sudden somebody speak to you in Spanish and go like, English only here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's universal because the bond is so strong that not, you know, it's like the different levels of the spirit world. Yes, there are people that don't speak English, but that doesn't mean there isn't a universal consciousness that are people who are able to communicate.
So they'll come to you in a language or in symbols that you understand, that you can understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, cool.
And usually with stuff that I get, it's more in relationship to the fact that I'm getting things that, it could be a symbol. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I do these groups in New York, so through the radio station we do breast cancer fundraisers. And I do probably 6 or 7 of them through the radio show that I do, and they go from groups of probably 400 to over 1,500 people. And I remember one time I was doing an audience, and all of a sudden I heard the I Love Lucy theme, you know, from Ricky Ricardo and Lucille Ball. And it happened to be that the woman's mother was redhead, and her name was Lucy. So, I mean, they're going to give me something that I can relate to.
I like that. That's, I mean, how clear is that? But that's still, you know, did you think for a moment maybe you were having Lucille Ball coming through?
Yeah, I was getting all excited. I had that one time. I'll tell you even a funnier story. I had gone to a gentleman in the front row. We were in the theater. It's theater style. And I heard the Honeymooners theme, so I'm saying to myself, oh, my God, I'm getting Jackie Gleason. Well, the guy's father was a bus driver.
Wow.
So they give me stuff like that.
Very significant.
Yeah, that is.
You know, just because I'm a TV junkie.
Do you amaze
give me
yourself?
Like to relate to, you know, the old TV shows.
Do you amaze yourself on that, Jeffrey, when that comes through and you're just getting, you're just moving through all these readings. I mean, it's just like, you know, I find that the fact is, I mean, not in an egotistical way, but the fact is when you're getting names and dates and addresses and this, and you're just on a roll. I mean, do you just stop and think, oh my God, this is just completely, totally amazing?
I don't usually have time because it's coming so rapid fire that it's the after effect. I mean, it amazes me with my energy. I could work and do a group of 1,500 people and then an hour later be fine. So it's got to be spirit. It's definitely not me.
Well, somebody's, you know, filling you up with energy, that's for sure.
Yep.
All right. Angela, could you do that?
Can I what?
I mean, that would wipe me out.
Well, I do in my own personal sessions. I do psychic work. Of course, I'm not a Jeffrey Wands either.
Oh.
But I do give a lot of details, dates, and time frames and situations.
Well, yeah. What I mean is the energy after that. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of, you know, that's
absolutely.
A lot of
I really don't know how you're doing it, Jeffrey, to get into a large crowd and then turn around and have something right after it.
Well,
do you find your energy is pulled from the spiritual source?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I see it, you know, I go extremes with it. So it's like when I do it's the same thing when I do my radio show. It's almost like the people line up before the show. You know, it's kind of like out of the Whoopi Goldberg movie Ghost.
Yeah.
Where they're all standing, you know, they're all sitting down at the couch waiting to come through. So it's like usually that's how it happens.
Let's talk about Earthbound because you mentioned that a little bit on it. And so for those who have passed, who are having issues, and you say don't make it comfortable for troubled souls to stick around. And what can people do to help move them on?
Oh, I think that, what happens is that, like, as we know, there's different levels of spirits, okay? So I try to explain to people the idea that when you're dealing with a haunting or you're dealing with a spirit that's stuck in a certain habitat, it's related to something that the spirit is still going through because the spirit has not moved on. And I tell people, like, you want to make your habitat where it becomes yours. And it would be just like anything. Like if you bought a house and you didn't paint the house, what's going to happen? The vibration of the house previously is still going to be very much there. And you want to clear that out. And that's what I really talk about, the idea of the fact of not letting those old souls hang out and say it's okay to disrupt my life, it's okay to create confusion, it's okay to create drama, because they're going back into a pattern that they're familiar with, and that's not acceptable for us.
Why do you think that all of a sudden a person starts having spirit activity? I mean, here it is that you haven't never noticed it. Maybe you go on vacation, maybe you bring something back, or for whatever it is, and all of a sudden you're having actually terrifying spirit activity.
Well, I think we draw it. I mean, like you see it with kids. Why do kids see dead people? Why are kids more open? Because they don't have a belief system. And I think what will happen sometimes is that between the two parallel worlds, you may have somebody on this side going through something that triggers the consciousness of the spirit on that side, and then the spirit starts acting out again because the spirit is going through the same element of something that the spirit went through when the spirit was earthbound.
Okay.
Well, Jeffrey, in your book, Another Door Opens, you wrote about a girl who had passed named Kathy and her mother Martha.
Yes.
And this was about EVPs. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah, basically what had happened was I was doing the Maury show, and I like, when I do the Maury show, they don't give me any information. So basically they really go, 100% out of their way to make sure that I have no prior information of who I'm sitting down with, who the person's name is. And at the Maury show, it was so funny because, I'm waiting to go on, to be taped to do this segment, and I'm thinking of, the Kit Kat bar, the commercial.
Right.
And sure enough, this woman's daughter's nickname was Kit Kat. And when I was going through this, I was like, she was like flirting with me. It was very funny. She's like, telling me, oh, you're going to meet my mom. And my mom, and I communicate all the time through the computer, and my mom gets messages. And sure enough, when I sat down with the mother, she started coming through. And it's interesting because, her daughter knew that she was going to die young. She told her mom, hey, Mom, what's going to happen? By the time I hit a certain age, I'm going to die in a car accident. And sure enough, guess what? That's what ended up happening.
She kind of felt like she was going to go, didn't she, Jeffrey? Didn't she feel like something was going to happen to her?
Yes, absolutely. But I had met her through the Maury show, and I thought it would be a great story because her daughter had such a profound effect on me, when I was doing the show. And the daughter was just an amazing soul, and she's actually formed a thing called the Big Circle, which is, dealing with other souls and other energies on that side. And when they do the EVP, which is, part of the organization, the Electronic, Voice Phenomena group, they've come through with some really phenomenal stuff. So it's kind of interesting. And actually the movie White Noise is based on that.
Oh,
right,
it was?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, for our listeners, what it was is that it was her... Now, who is Rachel? Rachel was the best friend of Kat's, or if it was her aunt?
I think it was her aunt.
Her aunt. Okay. Now,
Yes.
see, what she was doing was that she had read up on EVPs and then decided to set up a recorders or even record off her computer and happened to capture this young girl who had died voice. And so her mother thought, well, hey, if you can do it, why can't I? And that's a perfect example of the fact is that wanting to hear that voice for one more time, that one more time connection, and she ended up, like you said, she founded an organization now that teaches people too how to do the EVPs.
Well, it is, and it's a great thing because there's a girl that I work with periodically. Her name is Debbie Caruso, and she was actually on the Maury episode yesterday. And she is phenomenal with doing EVPs, and she happened to fall into it because her son Joseph was killed in a car accident, and it was like she was so obsessed with grief, and she'd gone through so much that she started to study it, and she's like, I want to make contact, and she got involved actually with the the EVP group out of It's Tom and Lisa Butler, and she started getting involved with that, and it was a great healing process for her because she was able to help other people. And what she's done is, she'll get people to call from all over the country, and she'll get EVPs for them without even knowing the person.
I'll be darned, no kidding.
She's phenomenal.
You can do it because she can do that.
Yeah, well, what they usually do is they'll send a picture of the person, or they'll find another way to make contact. And like when we've done the Maury show, she always gets stuff. For some reason, I'm good in drawing them in, and she's good at getting them on the EVPs.
Yeah, I know that you do a lot of writing when do you do the writing beforehand or as you're doing your readings, Jeffrey?
Both. Usually they'll sketch out a whole paragraph for me before I sit down with the individual. And
do they come in your dreams too?
Yeah, they come all forms. I mean, I always tease people I'm clairaudient. I mean, I get it on all forms. They'll come through my voice box. They'll come through all different elements. Whatever, is easy. I like doing the writing because once I get in that flow, it's almost like my hand gets taken over and I just start writing about the person.
Like it's an automatic writing?
Yeah, it's a form of it.
Wow. I could see some people, their minds going, oh, that's a Ouija board, that's a Ouija board.
Well, no, because I'm not sitting with a Ouija board. I'm sitting with a pen.
Yeah, but they associate automatic writing with Ouija board. I mean, the fact of it is that it's allowing spirit to come through, and, to me, you still have control of it. I mean, you're the one with the pen and the paper.
Yes, that's true, but most people, unfortunately, they have to attribute it to a Ouija board. Not that we're looking to put Milton Bradley out of business. But I always caution people that if you're going to sit with a Ouija board, just know what you're doing. Just don't do it for the sake of doing it.
Well, Jeffrey, let me ask you, do you think that spirits are constantly in communication with their loved ones, and it is just the loved one's inability to hear them?
Yes, absolutely, because I think what happens is that I wrote in my first book, The Idea of Grief, that I find that we go through different forms of grief, okay? And I broke it down into 3 parts, which are denial, acceptance, okay, and, anger. And what ends up happening is most people get stuck at the anger thing because, most people are hung up on the fact that individual died. Why did I not get to the hospital and Mom died? And when have you ever met a dead person or been involved with a dead person where a dead person is so concerned about their funeral and everything else, where the funeral is really more for us?
Right.
Oh, sure
So
it is.
the psychic in you says, understand and harness your natural psychic power. So I believe it's very important for that book to have been written, Jeffrey, and I think it's a wonderful contribution to individuals out there trying to learn really how to do what you do.
Well, I mean, I think it's good, and I try to educate people, and I think if people would just take 3-4 minutes a day and learn how to meditate a little bit, they'd start getting their own messages. I mean, if you look at any successful person, or you look at anyone, they go by their instincts, they go by their gut, and that's all part of it. It's just a different form of it.
The trust in it.
Most people don't. They're afraid.
Right. On the EVPs here on it, I want to go back to that just a little bit, though, on it. And so, do you have a favorite EVP that you've recorded?
We've gotten all kinds of stuff. I mean, when I had done the special We See Mediums, We See Dead People, we were in a cemetery, which was a Revolutionary War cemetery. It's up in Ossining, New York, which is not too far from Sing Sing. And we had picked up a gentleman that came through on the EVP, which he was an English soldier, and you can actually hear his accent in the EVP.
Oh, that's really cool.
Fantastic,
he was asking us, which way to Tarrytown. So I thought that was kind of funny.
How do you think... Oh, go ahead, Jeffrey. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You done? Okay. How do you think that with us not hearing them speak, but the recorders are picking that up?
Well, I think they come because it's like, why do animals hear sounds that we don't hear? Because animals are more sensitive in their hearing. And I think what happens is that I tell people, I get a lot of ringing in my ears, and it's not because I have a condition of my ears. It's because that's the spirits and that's the spirit world, trying to communicate. And I get that constantly where my ears ring. And, usually it's that buzz, it's that chatter, because they're still learning how to come from that other dimension.
Mm-hmm. Really? And so put aside that the medical conditions, because there is, a couple medical conditions that are out there that does cause that. But when you can't find, I think I must have a sister that's going to be in trouble because she has that happen to her all the time. But see, she's not still, she's not a whole big believer of this stuff. But
she's not open to it yet.
Well, the whole thing is that these doctors are thinking that, I mean, they're trying all kinds of medical tests on her because they can't figure out why her ears are doing that.
Well, that's because basically the relatives, the spirits, the energies that are there are trying to get through to her, and it's at a high-pitched level, and that's where she's getting the ringing.
Interesting. So now when you speak about how animals can pick up danger and how animals can pick up spirits around them, what do you think they do when they actually sense them? Do you think that there's fear from the animal?
I think it's probably fear, but I think with spirits what I find to be is I don't think animals have an easy time of distinguishing what's alive and what's not. And I think what they're picking up is the vibration of that spirit. So if it's a spirit, I had it with, our dog, and my Golden used to, when I would bring somebody home with me, not realize that I'm bringing somebody home, she would react a certain way. And she wouldn't come near me, or she would act funny. And it was related to that. But I think, the part with the danger part, I think it's their natural instinct that they're feeling. It's like when they had the tsunami, they had a lot of the animals, they went to higher ground instinctively. So I think that in that form, they definitely know, maybe it's part of their genetic makeup, but I think it's very much an intuitive thing. I think it's very much a psychic thing with them.
Oh, there's somebody around them in spirit that's saying, "Run, little dog, run."
Exactly.
Absolutely on that. Now, we're going to come back to Cleo because I do want to read some part of your book that you have this story about Cleo, and Cleo is your dog. But I want to ask you real quick also to share about the woman who adopts the neighbor's cat. Now, this is in the book, Another Door Opens. I just think there was a very significant part of your story on this where the cat was doing something at the same time every night.
Oh yeah, well I said to people, and I usually find this with the patterns with the animals, you will get somebody who has lost an animal, and then all of a sudden this animal will appear in their life, and that animal will start dictating and doing the same thing that the other animal did. And people get freaked out by it, and I'm like, listen, what's happening is part of that animal that's passed on has made a soul imprint in the present animal, and that's why that animal is kind of like reincarnated, but has come into a different body. But in the case of the cat was picking up vibrations of things that had gone on in this particular apartment, and that's what it was related to.
Right, and you also spoke about, too, that the cat was meowing at 1 o'clock. Well, the prior owner, the neighbor across the hall, had died at 1 o'clock.
Exactly, so the animal had picked up the vibration of that neighbor still, wandering the hallways.
I just thought that was very significant. The fact is that here it is, that cat is remembering or feeling that maybe that even that spirit coming back and visiting at 1 o'clock each night. But it was very significant. It was a pattern.
Yeah, and animals will do that because it's something they're familiar with.
No.
I mean, don't you remember recently they had that whole thing about the nursing home with the cat that would go into a particular resident's room and the resident would die?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Don't you remember that? It was all over the news.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a typical example of the fact of how much animals are connected to us in that way, where they sense death and they know death and they understand what's happening.
Well, I'm going to have to, because I know my cat is just a pain in the butt when it comes to 4:30 in the morning. And he just runs everywhere about the house. Now, it just seems that he must be somebody's connecting with him or doing something on him.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, I'm going to have to talk to one of my little ghosties here to tell him to stop it because it wakes me up every single night on it. Okay, I want to read this most just sweet, very caring story, and this is what you wrote. And this has to do with Jeffrey Wan's dog, Cleo. And how long did you have Cleo for, Jeffrey?
Let me think. We had Cleo. I had gotten Cleo when my son was 18 months old, and that was my younger son. So I think we had Cleo up to about 12. So we had Cleo probably almost 12 years.
Oh, 12 years. Okay, and Jeffrey writes this in his book, and he says, Cleo had a tumor on her liver, and her vet advised us that it needed to be removed. I was extremely worried about putting her through the surgery, but in the end, my wife convinced me that we needed to do whatever we could to try to save her and also prolong her life. I knew on a higher level that she was going to die, but on a very human level, I was trying to deny what I knew because I simply wasn't ready for it to happen. She got through the surgery, and after staying in the hospital for 6 days, she came home. That night, we all went to bed, and at about 4 o'clock in the morning, Cleo woke me up to let her out, and when she came back, she was panting heavily and obviously in pain. I stayed up through the night trying to comfort her, telling her I loved her, and letting her know it was okay for her to go. The next morning, as soon as our son left for school, Cleo went into the guest bedroom, lay down on a jacket of mine. Oh, I just cried this part. That was mine, that was in there, and she passed away. You know, the fact of it is that she waited for your son to leave.
Yeah, she knew.
That was so touching. I'm
was
sorry
very hard.
about that,
I would
I
say,
just thought
you know,
it was just so absolutely touching. That
Yeah, well, they were so connected from the first day, and I mean, she used to sit in his little pool and have his juice box in her mouth. She did the funniest things with him, and anytime he was sick or he had a cold, she would be right next to him. She wouldn't leave him. So it was just like they had this unbelievable bond, you know. And it's like, you know, when you first, we used to put Cleo in a crate, you know, in the beginning when, you know, when she was a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger son would sit in the crate with her. It was the funniest thing. They had that unbelievable bond. So, I mean, that was probably the worst death I've ever had to experience because, you know, you take them to the vet afterwards. I took her to get cremated. It was very hard, you know, dealing with that. It was very emotional.
And they forgive us, and you know, on some animals that do need to be euthanized or put to sleep because they're in a lot of pain and they're just suffering. But I believe, don't you think they do forgive?
Oh, totally. I mean, I remember 2 nights after the time that she passed, and she would always wake me up. She would wake no one else up in the house because she figured I was up anyway. And I remember 2 nights, all of a sudden she used to, like, you know, breathe in my face, and I'm like, oh my God, it's time to let her out. And I remember the one night, and it was like probably about 4:15, and sure enough, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to get up, you're dead. You can let yourself out. So, you know, it was very funny in that way, and I'm like, oh, Cleo. So it was just her way of saying, hey, I'm still around, so don't be concerned. But
and I know a lot of people question whether or not their beloved animals are alive in the spirit world.
Well,
I truly question if, you know, Spot or Fifi is living on the other side. Have you ever picked up on animals outside of Cleo when you have a private session?
All the time. I've had snakes, I've had rabbits, I've had ducks, I've had cats, I've had horses, I've had eagles, you name it, they've come through.
No kidding.
Yes.
And how do you know? I mean, I'm assuming that they make their animal sounds to you, but it's just like they're through your telepathy. I'm assuming that's how, you know.
Well, it would be an image. Usually what will happen is they will show me, so if it's a dog, and let's say you had a St. Bernard, they'll show me the type of dog, so I know it's a St. Bernard.
Oh.
You know,
and that means a lot to people.
A name or something like that. A woman I sat with actually today, she had a golden retriever named Jack, and of course, I was thinking of the Robin Williams movie today, you know, where he plays the little kid, Jack.
Jack, who doesn't grow up.
And I think that was the name of the movie. And sure enough, I saw Robin Williams dressed as the little kid, and I'm like, oh my God. I said, the dog's showing me this. She goes, yeah, we named the dog Jack after the movie.
Oh, see.
So it's
That's
always
amazing.
that way.
But see, this is the thing. You have learned to trust your symbols, too.
Well, it's taken a while. I mean, I still second guess it. It's the human part. I mean, I've sat with people. I laugh because when I do groups and stuff, you know, I'll say to somebody, there's a Mary standing here. She passed, you know, from a brain tumor. She died in October, blah, blah, blah. She's one of 4 kids, boom, boom. I don't have a Mary. And then, like, 5 minutes later, the person will look at me and you're like, oh, yeah, I have an Aunt Mary. So it's typical.
So that's almost like psychic or, you know, amnesia, is it not?
Yes, it is. But I think it's more because people get, like, nervous when they put on the spot.
Yeah.
So they want to make the connection, and then they get so afraid of making the connection that they think they're missing the connection.
Have you had people lie to you before, saying that, no, I don't have that person?
Yeah, I've had people lie. I mean, I know when Spirit is giving me something.
Oh, of course, you do on it.
So, Jeffrey, do you see the spirits, or do you just get an image, or do you just feel the energy? I mean, I know that you're clairaudient.
I get it on all levels. Sometimes I'll see them, sometimes I hear them, sometimes I'll smell them. It'll just be a mix.
I wish my audience would come in clear on that. At home, it's just lousy. It's absolutely lousy when I'm at home. But when I'm outside of my home, it seems to be a lot better.
Well, maybe it's less chaotic outside the house.
Well, you know, Jeffrey, Tuesday has a lot of spirits in her house. Mm-hmm. And it's been documented, and there's a lot of videos and photographs, in fact, thousands of them. Why do you think that she has all of this spirit activity in her home? I mean, even on the outside, there's literally thousands of orbs coming her way. What do you think is going on with that?
It could be a part where the house is, that there's some sort of portal to the spirit world where there's some sort of hot spot going on. and they're being drawn to her house, which she could be part of that element.
So I'm part of the problem.
Yep.
Great.
Well, you just need to move now, Tuesday.
Exactly.
Would that help?
I don't think so. Sorry.
Could there be one particular spirit that's causing it also too, Jeffrey?
Usually they travel in caravans, so it's not
Yeah,
just
well,
one individual one.
yeah.
Usually you're going to get more than one that's coming at you.
Okay. Do you think there's
I mean,
a way to
there's no
close this
set
portal?
ringleader in your house. It's more the fact that I think you're just in an area where there's a lot of activity going on.
Great. That would be true, very much true on it. And so, I find the fact is that when there is a lot of, I call it infestation of spirit activity, though, that there seems to be sometimes even bullies.
Yeah, I mean, they can be, but you also got to remember that spirits like to take control of a situation, and you have to take control back, which means you can't allow them to take control of you. And more of it is the fact that, yes, you're documenting all this stuff, you're getting all these pictures, but you have to dictate to them what's good for you.
Yes, very true. That is very true on it.
And most people don't do that. I try to explain. I laugh, not to knock ghost people that do kind of ghost investigations, but I laugh sometimes with people that do ghost investigations because they want so much to get something instead of just letting it happen on its own due course. And, spirits will always find a way to make a connection. It's just a matter of us having the patience to kind of make that connection with them. And usually,
And not all paranormal investigators are psychics either.
I agree with you, but unfortunately they think, sometimes that, that they're going to get it on that particular day. And there may be other elements involved why you're not getting it. You know what I'm saying? It may not have nothing to do with anything being paranormal. It may have to do more with the fact that these individuals are just not connecting with the spirits or not using that other part of them to do that.
Well, Jeffrey, let me ask you something. With a psychic going into a paranormal investigation, and I know you've done many of them,
Yes.
do you feel that it is the role of a psychic to try to clear that environment of the spirit, or do you feel that the spirit has the same, let's call, for a lack of a better word, right to be there?
I think it's both. It'll depend. I know a lot of the Maury Show ones that I've done where, people have complained about the house being haunted. It's been more because of situations. I mean, we had done this one, I don't know if it was on the one yesterday, but I think it was actually on the Ryan Beal show, where this policeman had moved into a house with his family, and somebody had killed themselves in the house. And basically, they had known the family, and it was setting things off. And I was trying to explain to them it wasn't so much about them, the haunting. It was more about the fact that this individual had killed themselves and was using them as a vehicle to kind of run havoc in the house. And, I think that's what it was all about. I mean, I've been to plenty of haunted houses that are nice houses where the spirits are just interested in being in the house because they're kind of still repeating things over and over and they haven't moved on. So I don't think it's all the time we have to clear them so much. I think it's more about not interfering with the energy of them.
So how does one do that, though? I mean, how do they not interfere with that energy?
Well, I think what happens is if you look in a lot of cases, okay, there was a very famous case, which I think Peter James was on, which was the one that was it? I don't know if it was in the Midwest somewhere, where the people were in a farmhouse or something. And I remember seeing it on sightings, and I think they made a movie out of it too.
The Sally House, the Heartland Ghost, right?
Yeah, the Hartley Ghost. So when you have an instance like that, they made all these changes in the house. Okay, when they came in, it was an old house. You were disrupting the flow of energy, so that disrupted the spirits there. And that's not unusual because remember, a spirit is going to be drawn to something that's the same. It would be like I have an antique dealer that comes to me, and she gets a big kick out of the fact that I can give her the history of the antique, and then she could trace it back. And usually, she'll say to me, am I like hurting the energy of the antique? Are the spirits getting mad at it? And I'm like, no, it's just the fact of being careful, because if you're in an old house, yes, you can make changes, but you want to make changes in knowing that it's going to affect the environment.
So what do people do? Let's just assume, like the Sally House, do they just give up and say, look, we're not going to be here? Or what would you recommend if Jeffrey Wands walks through their door?
If I got called in on a situation, I would say first thing I would do is probably do something where we would have some sort of seance where I could make a connection, see what the issue is with the soul, make sure that we could get the soul to move on, and that would be probably me being the mediator. That would probably be the better choice of words.
Like a spiritual negotiator.
Yes.
Ah,
That's so much better than those exorcism things that they do.
Oh, I just love that whole idea,
much better.
Jeffrey.
Well, as I said, I try to tell people, I try to mainstream it. We got to put it into terms. I think what happens is that, you know, when you think of all the psychic hotlines and you think of all the stuff, people look. I mean, that was one of the reasons why we named our dog Miss Cleopatra, because we named her after Miss Cleo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Because my kids used to get annoyed with Miss Cleo all the time, knowing that, you know, what I did, and, you know, we use that in that way. But, I mean, if you can be the mediator and you can be able to help that soul move on, then you're helping the consciousness where you're living and you're helping their consciousness.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, though, on it. And you know, and I have a question. We've got a couple minutes before we go to break on it. We have a guest in the virtual auditorium, which we have on paltalk.com, and she's asking about why would spirits heat up the place. She says, why heat at 3 a.m.? It seems like she's having, you know, with this particular person here, I do know who she is, excuse me, and she is having some big trouble in her home in regard to...
Well, you know, usually when you're going to get a temperature change, it's because at 3 a.m., or whenever it is, they're choosing to use that as a portal to come across. So heat is an example, cold is an example. Probably the more classic example is the fact of the cold, because remember, they're coming from another dimension. The heat may be related to something that's gone on previously in that house that she's triggering. I mean, it's not, I mean, most people would hear if it's heat, you know who they're going to think it is. They're going to think it's the devil, or they're going to think it's related to something demonic. And that's not necessarily the case.
And so do you think that's a form of intimidation on that, Jeffrey?
Oh, of course it is, because she's fearful, and she's got stuff that she went through, you know, in her upbringing that they're using to kind of intimidate her with. You know, think of it like the spirit mafia. You know,
wow.
You owe them something.
That's a bold statement.
They're basically trying to intimidate you. You know, they're making you an offer you can't refuse.
That's good. You know, that's a lot of good food for thought there, Ron. And I suggested the same thing as far as, yeah, they do. We'll do anything to intimidate you. That's for sure.
Well, remember, you know, I tell people too. You know, if you look at anything that's related to anything on that level, it's usually connected to the fact that people get challenged on the fact that do they really believe in a higher power. And, you know, when you've seen The Exorcist or you've seen other things of that thing that deal with anything demonic, okay, the thing that really comes into play is the idea of the fact of your faith. And maybe this spirit is challenging this, you know, individual about her faith.
Okay, but the fact of it is that if the spirit has no fear about, you know, I mean, obviously sometimes I've seen them where they don't care.
And she hasn't done that.
Say that again, Jeffrey?
She hasn't taken control of that situation.
Okay, empowering herself, yeah, because they are running her out of the house. That's
She's
for sure.
letting it. I think, you know, when you said that, and I don't know, you know, because I don't know the history of this, but as soon as you were saying that, I saw a male energy. So I think this is a male that's, you know, connecting with her because it has to do with some things in her upbringing. And I think that this spirit is something that's been with her since she was a little girl. And I think that this spirit is basically using this as a form of intimidation because she had these particular issues with the family growing up.
Dixie, do you understand that? Well, let her respond for a
Well,
second.
that is a lot of information. Thank you.
I know, I'm sorry.
She's saying that she does understand that. True. She's saying true. All right, let's give her a chance to respond. She does say true on that. And so...
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I think this is tied into some stuff that she had with family relationships, and I think the spirit is using it to her advantage.
Boy, I mean, it really is intimidating her and her husband. I mean,
yeah, well, it is, but she's got to empower herself and take it back.
Dixie, do you understand that? But don't want to go back to forward in life. She doesn't want to go back and deal with what was in the past. She wants to go forward in life.
Well, that's what it is, and you know, think about it. If you got a spirit that's not necessarily a benevolent spirit, but a spirit that's unrested, they're going to use what they can use to play games. And this is a perfect way because she's got all these issues, you know, tied into her upbringing.
Okay.
And it's something that she needs to get through, and I think if she makes the psychological impact of this, then it takes the spirit's edge away.
Can we manifest something as negative as this?
Sure we can, because think about if you have an unconscious experience growing up. You know, I had a real interesting case that I dealt with in New York, and I had this young lady come to me, and she was in therapy, and she had come to a therapist I work with. And, you know, of course, I didn't know the background. All I knew is that this girl's father had killed himself. Well, long and behold, going through this whole process, this girl was molested on a continual basis by the father, raped. You know, he did it to all three of his children. He was a massive alcoholic. So here's this woman who's blocked the whole part of her life out, okay, where she doesn't remember this, And then, through the process of therapy, through the process of dealing with all these things, she was able to clear this out. And it was stuff that was affected. She couldn't understand every time she started a relationship and she got to a point of intimacy. She couldn't do it, and she didn't remember this because she had blocked this out.
Well, let's hold that note from this. This is very interesting on it. I want to continue with the subject. We got to go to a break here, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Everybody stay tuned. And you're listening to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio with your host, Angela Thomas, and Tuesday Miles, and our guest, Jeffrey Wands. We'll be back in a few minutes.
It's the top of the hour on Paranormal Talk Radio with your host, Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas. We'll return in just a few moments. Go to www.portaltalkradio.com.
The family.
Okay, and you're correct there. Yeah, there isn't, what she describes as who the older female would be, her mom.
Yeah, well, that's what I think this is, and I think there's unresolved stuff with her and the father, and I think that's what this is about.
Okay.
I mean, her mom's, trying to reach out to her to help her get through this point, because here she has a great relationship with somebody, and she's been, she should be able to move on from this, and she hasn't been able to do that.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Well,
that's important.
That is important. I will actually give her that information.
Yeah, please, if you can.
Yeah, I will. I'll absolutely got her phone number. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just found out actually today that we're going to the Waverly Sanatorium for the Maury show.
Oh, you are?
Yes, in August.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Wow. Well, certainly we want to bring up your upcoming events and your appearances and what shows you will be on, and definitely promote your book again.
Yeah, this should be interesting. So we're going to actually go.
You are listening
to the Paranormal Radio Network. Welcome back to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. Here again are your hosts, Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas.
And welcome back to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
And today's guest, Jeffrey Wands, has been joining us. And Angela, could you give out Jeffrey's website?
Yes, Jeffrey Wands' website is www.jeffreywands.com. That's JEFFREY Wands.com.
I know, and for some reason, it's when you see Jeffrey, you want to see the ERY, but it's REY on it. So on it. And so, who gave you that name? Your mom or your dad?
My mom.
Your mom did.
Yes.
Your mom did. Is your mom still living?
Yes, she is.
She's still living on it. Lucky for you on that one. I don't have a living mom on that, but. Well, we ended our conversation talking about a couple that actually, we have a couple guests in the virtual auditorium, and we were talking to her and regarding how she could help a couple of issues that she's having with some spirit activity and stuff. And so on that note, we had a couple other of our guests asking some questions. But, we want to finish and make sure that we hit everything in our subjects first before we go on to that. And I know that I skipped over a question that I wanted to ask you about reincarnation, so I want to go back to this one. And this is, again, back to the book, Another Door Opens. And you say, once we all have resolved our issues here on Earth, we can peacefully move forward. There won't be a need to reincarnate. How do we know, Jeffrey, when we reach that point of our last time here?
In my experiences, you don't know until you're on the other side. And it's that sense of where I've had people where people have not come through. And in my experiences, especially, it usually is a process where It's going to be a 70 and 80-year process before, they're ready to not come back. I mean, some souls, unfortunately, have not evolved enough where they can necessarily, not continue to keep coming back because they still are going through the same garbage and the same crap that they did when they were here.
Jeffrey, do you believe that souls are caught in limbo?
Yes, there are certain souls. That's where we get the poltergeist, and that's where you get the haunting. Because most people that have ever come across a haunting will find that this person that's seen, in a certain way, keeps repeating the same thing over and over. And that's their way of that soul kind of being caught in limbo, which is basically they're caught in, in our physical world, and they're manifesting these energies in these situations because they haven't been able to move on.
Oh, that's a good point on that one. Absolutely.
Well, what do you think about? Let's say we went to a historical house, and they kept seeing this particular woman in red, and everybody would see this woman in red. Well, and then you find out the history of the house, the fact that this woman in red, had lived in the house in the 1700s, had died when she had a red dress on, and the fact that she died violently or how she died would definitely affect the fact that that woman in red would still keep coming through in a certain way.
Is that like an imprint, though?
Yes.
It's like an imprint. So describe
it's kind of like, I call it residual energy.
Okay, that's what I was just going to ask. What's the difference between imprint and residual?
Because residual energy is something that's happened in a situation that could be tragic, or it's been a violent thing where the soul keeps repeating the same act before the soul passed.
So they're literally trapped in their circumstances.
Agreed, which they don't realize, and that's what you want to do. You want to help them. That's why, people have said, they've been to places that are old places, and all of a sudden they'll see somebody walk, the person will appear, they walk through them, and they disappear. Because that soul is caught in that time frame.
So do you ever tell the psychic, the spirits, that this is what you're experiencing, or do you just get communications from... Yes, I try to reach
them if it's been like a poltergeist or something, and say, hey guys, you need to move on. You're stuck in the I Love Lucy rerun, which is, Lucy gets in trouble, Lucy gets out of trouble, and keeps repeating it, and I try to get them to realize that.
Yeah, because I've seen that where, actually I have out in the front of my house, I see Indian women, like washing something, they're sitting at the curb, of course, of the street, but to them, they're washing something. Like, to them, they're visualizing there's a stream there. Now, they don't notice me when I approach them.
Well, that's why, because they're caught in that residual energy. They're caught in that act before they pass.
And there is a way for me to help them.
Yeah, you got to really focus on them and get their attention.
Okay, because, I just wasn't sure if that was what, I would call like a residual imprint.
Yeah, it is.
It was
it's
just
basically like I call it a residual hotspot.
So it is the actual spirit there then? It's not.
It is. Well, it's the energy of that, or the residual energy of that individual that would have died in that instance or died in that period.
Oh, that's very interesting. That is a very interesting concept. So the fact of it is, sometimes there is what we call residual hauntings.
Yes, and that's why if you look at the patterns of hauntings, people will say, I spotted the person in this room. And, for a probably good example of this is in Gettysburg, they have those hotels. And I forget the one particular hotel, but the same person is reappearing in the same place over and over.
Over and over.
Remember, that was one of the darkest periods of this country. You had over 500,000 people die, in a war, okay? And you have this residual stuff, and a lot of them died tragically. I mean, who dies nice in a war? Come on.
But Jeffrey, do you think that actual events such as the Gettysburg, the war at Gettysburg, actually repeats itself in the spiritual realm?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. See, that's been my belief and my messages that I've received.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you look like
I just wanted to check with you. So, Jeffrey, now you were speaking about hauntings. I understand that you're going to do another paranormal investigation.
Yes, we're actually going in August. I'm shooting for the Maury Show. We are going to be going to the Waverly Sanatorium in Kentucky. And we are going.
Now that's going to be that will be very cool for you.
Yeah, we're going for a weekend, so that should be
so
very
Maury is really venturing out and giving some airtime on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. I guess they got tired of Who's the Daddy for a while.
Who's your baby daddy?
Yeah.
Well, Maury is on, where I live in California, he's on for 3 or 4 hours during the day.
Really?
Yeah, he's consistent. He has the morning slot all the way through the afternoon slot. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is Who's Your Baby's Daddy, but You know, I like Maury. Maury, to me, seems to be a very nice guy. He really tries to help people.
Well, it is, and I mean, it's nice because we are coming to a point where they like the experiences with the show. They like what's going on. They like the reactions. I mean, we had the production assistant, you know, and Debbie, and we've actually, you know, had some really nice experiences doing this. So they see we've been able to get some ghost footage. We've been able to get some stuff up on tape. So I don't
I'm
think
just very happy that mass media is giving it the attention, and definitely that the Maury Show is giving it a platform.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think what's also good with it is they're not trying to disprove it or prove it. They're presenting it and letting people make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You know, I'm being asked to ask about this. This is weird. Now, this is a typical thing. Whether I have a guide or I have a spirit behind me, is asking about Molly. It was a young girl. Her's missing. Her name is Molly Ditelio. If I know I'm pronouncing her last name right. Her sisters were on the Maury Show, actually pleading to see if anybody had any information on her missing. Now, do you work with any of the police department on missing cases?
Yes, we did a missing kid show. Was Molly the one with the college students?
Yes.
Yes, I was going to sit with them, but they didn't want to.
Well, I haven't, you know, that strange on it enough. I contacted them after watching that show, and I have never ever done that where I actually contacted somebody in that. I always
yes,
felt
that was if I recall, that was a Midwest thing, and it was a young lady from a college dorm that went outside the dorm and disappeared.
Yes.
Yeah, there was some stuff, unfortunately, you know, where the family just didn't want me to do it, and that's fine.
Oh.
So,
And
I mean,
I'm
I
sure
was
there are a lot of
willing
families out there that don't want to talk to a psychic for the mere fact that they're afraid that they'll get the truth and the facts and the answers.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, when we do the missing kids shows, there are a lot of families that I have sat down with that have been, you know, we've been able to be helpful with. And what was nice is we did a bunch of shows on the Maury Show where I worked on missing kids, missing kids. And one of the instances of it, which was really good, is a little girl and her mom had seen the show, and because of seeing the show, she made her daughter more alert, and the daughter was able to knock off and stop a guy from actually abducting her.
Wow.
You know, but I do remember that show you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And then there was another one.
You know, I mean, still for these, you know, I think that at the time, too, that these particular sisters didn't understand anything about the psychics. I know that they're more open to it now and stuff on it. So,
well, I had offered at that time, but I just didn't want to. They were kind of like, this is not true, and I'm like, I'm not going to get into having to validate or prove myself. I was offering my help. I wasn't gaining from doing it. I was doing it because I really felt for them and also as being a parent, and I felt their pain. But you know what? It is what it is, and, you know, I try to, anytime that we've done it through the show, the producers always ask, are they open to it before I will actually sit down with somebody.
Okay.
So now, Jeffrey, do you work around the world on cases, or are you just going around the world with your messages, or how are you working, just nationally or internationally? Because we know you're internationally known.
Well, I've actually done some international stuff, and actually the new book is getting published in Barcelona, Spain, so it's going to actually be out in December.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm very
huge
excited about
congratulations. Oh, absolutely, on it. Okay. Quickly on this, because I do want to go into a couple other questions before we go into our listeners and our audience and ask them on it. Oh, yes, real quickly on this. Okay, share with us. Jeffrey, do you do a protection ritual?
Yes, I do.
What do you do? Can you share with us what you do?
All right, well, I'll give you two forms. There's
Okay.
one that I do that's like a blanket, and basically I enrich myself in a white blanket, and I do it in a way, you know, when you think of those cool nights, not that you have many cool nights in California, but I just visualize it where I'm kind of like wrapping myself in the blanket kind of in a mummy type way, and when I'm doing that, I'm knocking off any kind of negative energy or anything that would seep through the blanket that would cause any kind of chill or any uncomfortable. That's one that I do. The other ritual that I do is I kind of visualize that I'm taking light and I'm putting myself, you know, in where I'm embracing myself in this beautiful sunlight. And I always think of it more so like when you come out on the first, you know, day of spring and the sun, you know, it's cool out, but the sun is like hitting the ground and it's reflecting off your face.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I do it to kind of protect myself.
And so that trust and faith, intense faith and belief.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I do some prayers and I do some things that I'm comfortable with that are a little bit things that I just kind of channel my energy with that helps me kind of focus my energy.
How important is that to do that, Jeffrey?
I think it's very important because I think if you put out a certain mindset, then you're going to receive certain information.
Okay. On it. In your book, The Psychic is in You. The Psychic in You. Okay, there's a quote in there. It says, what do you mean by clearing psychic log jam?
Well, because what happens is, it's like my example to people would be the fact that people have instances where they have bad things that happen in their life, and then they start, like, acting out this situation. So a perfect example would be what we talked about earlier, where I had a young lady who had her father who was, not doing the right thing and was basically violating her. She was reliving those instances on a regular basis. Not that she was raped again, but she was living those issues with, her own personal relationships. And I tell people that's a psychic logjam. That's a psychic energy thing where you're picking up so many things, but they relate to things that we've gone through before.
Oh, yeah. No, that's perfect on it. I completely agree on that. Absolutely on it. Angela, do you have any more questions for him he's hit every single one of my questions, that's for sure.
Well, certainly. I have a 2 days worth of questions. Now, let's go ahead first of all and move on to a couple of the questions from our listeners in the virtual auditorium, and then I would like to talk to you, Jeffrey, about some of your upcoming events.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's go back here a little bit here, and I know that we had a question from. Oh, okay. Can you? I'm going to ask the virtual auditorium for you, those who have actually missed the slideshow. Could you retext your question so I don't have to go looking for it again, please? On that, appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing that we have both telephone and internet to carry the show, and certainly to receive the questions. So go ahead, Helen, and present your question, please.
Okay. She says, first of all, she just the one question. First of all, I want to know if there's a certain case concerning one of her relatives. Death, will it ever be solved? And she's saying the cousin, Wendell's death, will it ever be solved?
I actually do feel there's a breakthrough because when she says that, I hear more than one person involved. So I got to believe that it's tied into more than one person. And it's somebody that's actually done this before. So I would say to you, most definitely, when I heard that, I did get like a feeling of a person being murdered or a person being kind of violated in that way. And my sense of this is that this person has done this before. Okay,
and she's validating yes and okay on it, absolutely. And she's just asking again, she has a dream of working with missing children. Is that something that she can pursue?
Absolutely. More in a foundational way.
Oh, more than a foundational way. Wow. There you go, Mrs. Sideshow. And her name's Helen, she says. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, Angela, I think there was a couple more.
Okay.
Oh, somebody's vehicle. I think they're asking about their vehicle. And what is your first name? You're an angel. Get your first name. These nicknames are Glenda. She's asking about a vehicle that she wants to purchase.
Well, that's good. Now I'm doing cars. That's the first. You know what? When she says that, it's like my immediate impression was actually something of a blue nature. So I don't know that this is the car, but I definitely see a car coming up that's going to come up in July.
Oh, very good. Okay, so not until July then.
Yes.
Not until July then. Woohoo! Oh boy, she's got a big woohoo. So that's good on it, And so, Jeffrey, do you, when people approach you, and make appointments now? Again, let's talk about how they make an appointment with you.
Well, basically the best way. I mean, I have an office number. All my contact information's on the website. You can go right up to the website. You can either email us or the office number is up on the website. And I'm about a year out. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say you have said that you have about a year's waiting list. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is when you think about it.
Is there any urgent matters that people have that you would take them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a cancellation list that's an emergency list. So basically, when I get to a point, if it's really an emergency, my wonderful assistant, Teresa, that, works with me, she's very good at getting people in.
Oh, absolutely. And very dedicated to you and your work also. I noticed.
Yeah, it's very ironic. I always tease, I have my wife who's a Capricorn, and she's a Capricorn, so I'm surrounded by Capricorns.
Oh. You have two sons also, too.
Yes, I have two boys, Robert and Christopher.
And Christopher. Do either one of those show signs of being
psychic?
psychic?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so what do we do with that? How do we help them?
Well, I tell people, I'm glad you brought that up. I get phone calls from people. Oh my God, my 4-year-old is talking about my dead father. He's talking about, and it was so funny, being from New York, and I had a woman recently who was 4-year-old decided that he was gonna start telling her about her father Ben, who had died 15 years before he was born, and how Grandma used to chase him out of the house because he used to smoke cigars that Grandma, didn't like because they were the old Cuban-style cigars, and how when Ben's mother would go out with Grandpa for something to eat at the deli, that she would proceed to eat a pastrami sandwich, but she wouldn't eat the bread, she would just eat the middle of the sandwich.
So, Jeffrey, now you had your first psychic ability at around age 6. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually had a situation where I had gotten in trouble for something, and my mom's grandmother, which would have been my great-grandmother, appeared to me and said, your mother did this, this, and this. Why are you letting her punish you when, she should be punished because she got away with this, this, and this? Of course, I said that to my mother. It didn't do me any good because I did get punished. And my mother thought I was totally whacked. But I was so accurate with the information, I had not really known anything about my great-grandmother.
So how did you handle that as a 6-year-old child?
I was just being honest like she told me to be. But it was parts of my childhood. I had a friend growing up that I used to go fishing with. And the one night I didn't go with him to this particular lake that was by my house. He ended up being hit by a car, and I remember him coming through, that night and saying to me, I get hit by the car. And I remember the next morning, before the phone rang, I said to my mom, I said, something happened to Timmy. Timmy got hit by a car. My mother's like, you're being crazy. You were with Timmy last night. Timmy's home. And sure, my mother called the house, and Timmy had gotten, killed by a car.
Oh, no. So, Jeffrey, what would you tell the parents out there that are listening who have a child who is displaying psychic abilities?
Well, I think what I would do is don't alienate the kid. What happens is that I find it to be some people that get into this work need it because they do it because it makes them feel special and it makes them feel different. And I think you want to mainstream this, which means that if you are going through something where you have a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, you don't want them to feel different. You want them to feel normal. So you want them to understand some of the responsibility that comes with this and that they have to be careful. And I recently had a woman that came to me, and her daughter was extremely clairvoyant and extremely mediumship-oriented, and she was 12 years old. I was trying to really make her understand that it's okay to get messages, but remember, when you give the messages, you have to be a little careful because not everybody's open to those messages.
Okay. Now, I have a couple questions, and I'm going to slide right in here with my questions on this,
Sure.
because I have a rocking chair that somebody keeps sitting in there. Is there anything that you could pick up on who's sitting in this rocking chair, Jeffrey?
Oh, it's a family member. It's definitely. She said that you know who she is.
Okay, yeah, I guess I do know who that was. I wasn't
Yes,
sure if it was
you
Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
Thank you.
My family members doesn't seem to always, I smell them,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't. And
Well, when you said that, they were giving me this, lilac smell.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, well, they're trying to make sure. And then there's this other soap smell that I get.
Yes, that must be the one that hangs out in the bathroom.
You got it. At least that one's clean.
Oh, absolutely clean. Clean, but you talk about stuck. Now, this one doesn't leave the bathroom. Does not
Well,
leave the
I
bathroom.
think that it's not so much that she's not leaving the bathroom, it's her way of using that vehicle with something in the bathroom to get your attention.
Now, that's a thought, Tuesday. Very
I never
good.
thought about it that way.
Yeah, because you're just attributing the fact that she's hanging out in the bathroom all day, which personally she said she wouldn't want to do that.
Well, then come on out here.
Well,
But
she is
I
out.
doesn't seem like I can get her.
I think you do. I just don't think you're realizing that you are.
That's that V8 moment that you think that you think you hit all avenues of explanation, and then you have somebody come up with another logical explanation, and it just makes so much sense.
Well, I try to simplify the work, and I find what happens to be with a lot of people, it makes me nuts with some mediums because they're going on about how everybody's just all happy and everybody's wonderful, and not every soul, definitely gets that opportunity to be happy.
Oh, absolutely. Now, when we were talking about kids a second ago, I do have a son, and my son is extremely gifted also, but he's also disabled. and he's cerebral palsy, some autism, some mental retardation. He's got a whole bunch of things. But the fact of it is that it seems that Spirit really has a good relationship with him, although, again, a little bit swamped with him, but it's been very hard for me to teach him.
I don't think you have to teach him. I think that you have to understand that he doesn't have the defense mechanisms. He doesn't need the defense mechanism. He is a highly evolved soul that you're using the different spiritual gifts to help him function and help him, kind of operate in this world.
I got silent on that one because you know what, that's very profound.
Well, because I think you have to realize that in this incarnation, he's kind of chosen to come in this way, and what he's brought in with him is a lot of unconditional love. So in spite of the Father, in spite of all the stuff that he's endured, it's like he's got this pureness to him, and the pureness to him is the fact that he's very open to the spirit world.
Very open to the spirit world, and boy, he does have a great connection with them. I know that. I've never heard a person as far as, his way of praying is walking his room saying, "Hey, God, you there? I need to talk."
What's wrong with that?
And that's just,
he has a direct link.
He does have a direct, you're
He
right.
does. He is an AT&T operator.
Well, if we think about the Eastern culture, their belief is that if there was any type of mental or emotional challenges of an individual, that individual is spiritually blessed and should be, kept and preserved and helped along the way because they have their own direct connection with God.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely wonderful.
On that note, I just, I don't know how we can top that, Jeffrey. That's just...
Well, it's like cause and effect. I tell people, what you put out, you receive, and that's actually what I'm doing in my third book. And it's the idea of the fact that, I laugh with people, people get angry with you. Well, you're the great psychic, and you said this, this, and this, and this didn't happen. But nobody looks, really, I believe when you're a medium and you're the medium and you do the part of the psychic and you do all these different things, you give people the tools to be able to get to the next step. It's up to those people to use those tools.
So everyone should read The Psychic in You by Jeffrey Wands to learn more and more about how you can utilize your own gift, and another door opens to understand it even more.
Well, he goes through so many subjects in here, in his book, and I love the way that he actually, he puts captions on here that explains everything. Jeffrey, you have a wonderful way of writing. You really do.
Well, thank you. It's taken time. It's not really me. It's
well, you say that, but the fact of it is, too, when you write, I hear your voice, and to me that means a lot. That means a lot to me because this way I'm able to absorb the information, understand it, process it, and learn from it. And so I have to say, Jeffrey, that not every person that does writing can do that.
Well, that's true.
I
agree with that, but I really tell people I'm very fortunate because I do have other sources that I'm using.
Yeah, but it's and your topics that you choose in here are, I think that in itself, I love the deja vu. We love deja vu here, but it's just, it has everything that you can dream of. In here you even, I liked it also too because you did in your books here, you analyzed or you have definitions of dream interpretations.
Well, I try to make it simple. I think what happens is people get too Freudian with dreams, and I was laughing. I was doing a lecture in Florida, and I was talking to a group of people, and I said, I had two mega lotto winners in New York, and they both had the same dream, and they were both in bikinis in a snowstorm. So I said, you better go out and buy a lotto ticket if you have that snowstorm.
Oh, wow.
I said, or go to the racetrack.
There's a guest in the virtual auditorium that's asking about, does orange and rose petals keep spirits away?
No.
No. See, now there's that people are going to come up with 100 different ways for you to get rid of spirits. When you're really, when the fact is that you want to try everything.
Well, it's cleansing them. What you can do to help, you're really cleansing the area where they're at. You're not necessarily exercising them. And I try to tell people, you can do some sage, you could do some holy water, you could say some prayers, you can help them move on, you can kind of clear the space. But if they're refusing to move on, you've got to help them by, kind of being the mediator.
So basically you're empowering yourself and you put out the intention that they should leave?
Yes, you're asking very nicely, hey, we're not getting rent, you need to move on.
Our station manager, Joe, who answered the phone when you called on it, he moved to a new home. It seems that they have quite a few visitors there with them, and she's not being able to connect with them or find out who that is. Do you pick up anything on that, Jeffrey?
You know, when he said that right away, there's actually, I think one of them is actually his grandfather.
Okay.
And that would be coming from his dad's side.
His
and
dad's side.
I actually hear his name back, so I'm inclined to believe that somebody on that side has Joe's first name.
Oh, okay. Okay, on it. Would it, if you were saying, oh, wait, I want to make sure I heard that correctly. Repeat that, the
In
last
other words,
sentence.
what I'm saying is I hear somebody from his dad's side of the family.
Okay.
They are highlighting where they're giving me back Joseph's name, and they're saying that they have Joe's name, and I think that's who this is.
My station manager's look on his face is like, Jeffrey, everybody on his side of the family is just about named Joe or Joseph.
Well, I think it's connected to his dad, so I got to believe it's his grandpa.
But that's very significant, though. And the fact is that, you know, and here I'm going to say to our listeners, he would not know that know-how. He would not know any information about our station manager. And that's very, to me, profound.
Well, you
about
could
the
tell
fact
him that I also said this is somebody who walked with a limp.
that walked with a limp.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Joe, do you understand that? Walking with the limp on your on your dad's side. Yeah. He's getting a big on it. Yeah. See, now that's in itself is yeah. He's going. He's giving a big on that one. You know. I mean, you know that when you hit something like that, Jeffrey. I mean, it just. I have to say, it's something that you think about the rest of the day, thinking, how did he know that?
Well, you know what I find, too, and it's not to knock other psychics or anything like that, but not everybody is good in doing radio. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to develop to do radio, and not every psychic, can do radio. There are other psychics that are just good in person, and it just happens to be that I've mastered the ability, to really work and do radio without seeing people, where other people are very good over the phone and they can do it, but when you put on the spot sometimes, people get nervous and they get afraid, that they're going to get it wrong. And I've been doing radio for so many years that I don't get afraid of it, because I know that in my heart of hearts and soul of soul that the information I'm getting is valid.
So, Angela, should we ask him whether or not our show is going to go to, that we're going to get millions of dollars off of this radio show?
Let's go ahead, Tuesday,
I don't
and
know
ask
about
him.
millions of dollars, but I definitely see the show taking off.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And, tonight we've just entered prime time. This is our first show in prime time. And also it is our 1-year anniversary. So we've moved rather rapidly, and we're so pleased to have you as a guest here tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Let's go over a couple things first, because we want to make sure we fit this in. We've got about 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get Jeffrey everything in here.
Sure.
Bolton Center for Performing Arts.
Yes, that's actually June 16th. What we do is in New York, the station I'm at, we have a breast cancer fund. And the reason we have a breast cancer fund is the area I'm in New York with the station, it's a Clear Channel station. We have the highest incidence of breast cancer in all of the country. And basically what we've done is, before I came to the station, the woman who is the marketing director there has established a fund. And what they do is I raise money for the fund by having these events. And, a portion of the proceeds for every event I do, and then we do one big fundraiser in September, goes for all Long Island-based charities to help women that are either, one organization that they donate to is an organization, a Hispanic organization, who provides wigs for women who have gone through breast cancer treatment. Another one would have to do with another organization that picks up people and takes them to treatment. So basically what the fund does is it takes everything on Long Island and that's connected to breast cancer, and what they do is they donate parts of the fund to these individual charities.
That's terrific on it, because...
So it's become my pet thing. I'm doing it 4 years now, and we've raised over 6 figures, and it's been a great experience for me because of the fact that it's kind of my way of giving back. And
Certainly,
it's nice
that's
because
extraordinary.
So it's been great.
That is actually terrific. And this is the thing, Jeffrey, you are giving back, but and this is a form of giving back, but also too, by helping these people who come to you, that sometimes this is life-saving readings. In fact, it's that they are so desperate that they want to join the relatives because they can't live without them.
Agreed. But I also tell people you have to go through a normal grief process. And I tell people also, before you even get to a medium or you get to, anyone like myself or you guys, you need to go through a grief process, because most people want to kind of not go through a grief process and kind of take the shortcut and just make the connection, and they don't understand the value of having that grief process, so that you're able to kind of clear and, put that in a great place. The thing I always remember, and I tell people, when you look at the ancient Greeks and you look at the ancient Romans, what did they do when somebody died? They honored that person. And that's what you should be doing when that person dies, but you shouldn't be sad. You should be honoring that person and knowing that that person had such a profound effect or has made such a difference in your own life.
How do we express to others that there is life on the other side and that death is not a final thing?
Well, I think they have to experience it themselves. I don't think it's one set thing to do. I think basically people have to go through things so they can experience it. And grief is a very personal thing. And, I had a doctor in New York who lost his 19-year-old to a drunk driving accident. Of course, he's a surgeon. And he said to me right away, he goes, I'm a man of science. I can't accept this. And I said, well, you need to tell your daughter that, who keeps changing your radio stations in the car when it's a digital radio station. So you tell me how that's possible.
Wow.
So he looked at me and he's like, how many times I've had the car checked out? I said, yeah, you're wasting your time. I said, next time you go back to Mercedes, I said, have them change the radio and watch what she does next time. She says, because of the fact that she doesn't like your country and western station.
And so that does also prove that those in the afterlife do have a great sense of humor.
Oh, they do. I find them to be very funny sometimes.
So do you ever, Jeffrey, when you're working with individuals, do you ever get a good chuckle from the spirits?
Oh, all the time. I mean, I've had different instances, where they will say something funny, or, I laugh because, you get a different version of things when you sit with somebody. And, of course, the merry widow is sitting across from you telling you how much you miss the person, and the person's coming through saying, oh, you know what? She was a bitch when I was here. What changed things now? Because of the fact that, now I died and she inherited the money. And, she's carrying on with this, but she hated my guts when I was here.
Oh, my. Can
it does
you
get very
imagine?
comical. So,
can you
we never
imagine
remember that part.
receiving that message and you as the messenger, Jeffrey?
Mm-hmm. It's
Absolutely. Well, that is rather amusing, I have to say. Okay, so, Jeffrey, let's talk about your television or cable events coming up. Are you going to reappear on A&E or?
I probably. Right now, I'm actually in the process of working on developing my own show, so hopefully something will come out of that. I do have a Maury thing, coming up that we're doing in August, which is going to be the Waverly Sanatorium. So there's always TV appearances. I've done the Today Show a few times. I did Extreme Makeover. That was a lot of fun. They brought me in on a haunted house.
Oh, I recall watching that. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You did that on it. Jeff, we have a guest in the auditorium that came in, and her name is Anna, and she has had her son that's been passed for quite a long time and has never heard back from him.
Oh, she never heard back from him?
No. Is there any way that you can check to see if he is actually around? Her name is
it's like
Anna.
when she says that, I think that he is very omnipresent, because when she started talking, he was making me feel that he's the one that's causing all the little electrical disturbances in the house. So she attributed more, like with the lights, burning out all the time, as being something just normally electrical, and he's saying it's been him.
Anna, do you understand this?
Yes.
She says, I hear. Do you understand what he's saying? What he's saying about the electrical things in the house?
I think it's also the fact that she's always blamed herself for him passing, and she needs to put that behind her and realize that it, unfortunately, was just his time.
Okay. She says the TV's been going in and out a
Thank
lot.
you.
She feels. I think she actually feels them touching her.
Well, that's his way of saying, "Hey, Mom, I haven't moved on yet."
Okay.
Oh, what a blessing! What a blessing!
Absolutely.
Well,
okay.
Jeffrey, we do have one other question. William Bowles from North Carolina, who is asking, since I've been doing mediumship for about a year, a beginner, do you see my mediumship development increasing substantially?
Well, I think it's ironic that he's asking me that he's been doing it a year. According to my sources, they've been saying he's been doing it his whole life.
He needs to stop buying all that antique stuff he goes out shopping for.
Thank you.
on it. Do you think that there is a connection with
Oh,
antique items?
Absolutely.
Oh, see,
Remember, because they've had antique items have a vibration. Remember, they've belonged to someone else. They've been part of somebody else's life.
See, that's why my house is filled with them.
it does. No kidding.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely on that one. Wow. See, I always said the fact is that, of course, what have you, if you're all of a sudden experiencing activity, and you haven't had anything before, do the ABCs. Did you bring in something with, home that's new? Does it always have to be antique? Can it be a new item?
Yeah, because it could trigger a past memory to that soul, where that soul is reacting. I've had instances of where I've investigated hauntings where in a particular child's room, the child will have, events taking place where their dolls are going on or, toys are acting on, and it's because that's triggering something with a particular spirit that's passed in that house.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Gosh. Oh, Jeffrey, I can't just thank you enough for all of your answers that you've given us, because the fact of it is that you've just been so honest with them, and I believe the fact is it's like our virtual auditorium is saying, they recognize it and they agree with it, and the fact is they're understanding what you're talking about.
Well, it's good to hear.
Keep things simple, and I always say keep it simple.
Well, that's what people have to learn to do. They don't know how to do that.
We can, and we did talk about just briefly about the manifesting energy. The fact is that even manifesting negative energy, manifesting your positive energy, we think that sometimes it's spirit activity, but is it our own manifested energy that's causing it?
Oh, absolutely, because we're putting that energy out. So, it's the person that wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to have a bad day today. Well, guess what? They find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So correct.
Can spirits see us?
Yes.
How clear, Jeffrey?
Very clear. And it's kind of like in a 360-degree element. But I laugh because, I've had people ask me, well, it was so funny. I had a young lady. She said, I have to know something. My dad was always very worried about me having, sex for the first time for somebody. And, I went on my honeymoon. Does my dad know I'm not a virgin anymore? And I started laughing. I'm like, your dad doesn't really care at this point. So you need to let go of that because that's called guilt.
But there's that topic. Has spirit ever interrupted you having sex?
I've seen spirits in the room at times, yeah.
At times with that, yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think they realize, necessarily at that point that they're interrupting.
Well, there is energy that of course, is being put out in that aspect of it. But, the fact of it is that they do, how do they know, this is the thing, I really, I think I understand it, but not sure, but I'll come home from shopping, and I'll happen to look over into the sky, and far in the sky, and they're coming right at me. How do they see us coming from that far? Is it our energy, our light, Jeffrey?
It's your energy that you're drawing in.
They literally, clear across the parking lot.
Well, it's all interrelated.
Oh, boy. And there's a way to shut that down, yes?
Yes, you just have to encompass yourself and say, I'm closing the door now, and I need some peace.
Well, there you go on it. And so, it seems like it's been 2 hours that we've had you on the show, Jeffrey, and it seems to be really 5 minutes. It seems to go so fast. Angela, do you have any other further questions for Jeffrey?
Well, I don't have any questions, but again, I really would like our listening audience to go out and get the book, Another Door Opens, as well as The Psychic in You. And we'll be looking forward to your show, Jeffrey. I have a feeling that between now and November you'll know something, and even in January you've got something significant coming in. And also, I know that you're probably not talking to them now, but NBC is a key factor for you.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Jeffrey's going to be out in California, so I'm hoping that I could hook up with him when he comes out here. I know that he's on a busy schedule on that, but
well,
I'd
I'm
still
sure
like to...
once I get the date, I promise you I will.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I'd love to take you up to dinner or lunch or whatever time is on that. And you looking forward to that new book, and will you please join us back on the show when you have that
Oh,
new book
definitely.
on it? That would be great. And again, you can buy these books at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Yes.
And you can go to Jeffrey's website, which is Angela?
JeffreyWands.com.
Absolutely. On that, you can get all his information there on it. And like I said, Jeffrey, Jeffrey does have a waiting list of a year, so be patient with it. But I have to say that it's worth that wait.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely worth that wait.
Its weight in gold.
And congratulations on all that you do, and congratulations with the Maury Show. This is.
Well, thank you.
How many years now has it been with the Maury?
I'm doing the Maury Show probably a good 5 years now.
That's great.
amazing.
And he seems to be the longest-running talk show host.
Yeah, it is amazing. It really
you know.
is.
Have
Yeah.
you met Connie?
Yes, a couple times.
Have you met Connie? Oh, she's a historic person in herself. I mean, she's, you know,
Well, it's funny because,
well-known.
you know, Maury lives in the Dakota, and the Dakota is where John Lennon got shot, and it's considered one of the most haunted places in New York.
Oh, wow. Wow, on it. Well, on that, and so great. Well, Jeffrey, we'll let you go on here. Angela and I have a few announcements that we have to make, and
Great.
we're going to close
Thank
here in
you,
a few
guys.
minutes. And
thanks
thank
for
you so
having
much
me.
for joining us. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Jeffrey. And
You're
please
welcome.
come back again.
I will. My pleasure. Thank you.
God bless you.
Bye-bye. Well, Angela, you know, what a great show we had today.
Amazing
We had a
show
great show,
Tuesday.
and it just went so smooth, and it just like we feel like we're all grown up.
I know. And I think I have a crush.
You have a crush. You know, this is the thing what I said about Jeffrey. You know, I have seen Jeffrey's work a little bit here and a little bit there, but, you know, the honesty and the integrity that he brings to his, you know, his clients is in itself says a lot for it, and his accuracy is really well known all over the place on it. And so, you know, that's what you want to look for. If the fact of it is that you want to look, if you're going to look for somebody that you need information from, you know, I mean, like Angela does hers also too, and she's a tarot card reader, and she's very good on it too. But the fact is that, you know, you want to make sure that you check background if you can, and you want to check references if you can. You want to check the fact is that there's not going to be any public, you know, complaints about them.
Certainly. And, you know, with today's Internet access, you know, it's very easy to do research on any given psychic that has some credibility and look for testimonials and, you know, a history of them being out there. But, you know, Tuesday, I want to remind our listeners that, again, we have 2 new ways to access the Portal Paranormal Talk radio show, and that is with UpSnap. You simply text PARA, P-A-R-A, the numbers 27627. Again, that's PARA, P-A-R-A, 27627, or call 201-765-9737 to listen to the show by car. And I also want to let you know that you've been listening live on UPRN 105.8 New Orleans through the Paranormal Radio Network.
Absolutely on it. You know, and again, our website is www.portaltalkradio.com, and you can find more information about Angela or I, or our own personal websites. You can look for that. And thanks to actually Parahub, and that's Russ that's on there, who has done our commercials for us. We appreciate those. Those are completely awesome. We love him a lot. And
Absolutely.
all that he's done. And we've only got about 30 seconds left on this. And so, Angela, have a great, great week. And everybody out there, take care of yourself and each other. God bless.
And thanks for listening.
See you next week. Good night.